In a crowded street of New York City, people are minding their business until a busy lady came falling from the sky like any typical day. However, what was untypical about this death is that instead of cleaning blood and brain pieces off the ground, the health organization had to isolate the area as they are dealing with a disease called the Medusa virus. Doctors around the world are not able to find a cause or a cure for the Medusa virus. A newscaster narrates that in its first stage, the disease is an incubation period for 30 to 60 days from infection. In the second stage, the body starts turning to stone, petrified within 12 hours. So far, the fatality rate is at 100%, throwing the world into chaos, economic collapse, and rising political tension. A Russian businessman named Ivan Vega announces that his group, Venus Gate, is currently searching for possible cures. He continues to say that the ice will conquer the stone, implying they will find a cure for the disease in the coolest way possible. On the other half of the world, U.S. officials meet to discuss the possibilities of the Medusa virus being a bioweapon developed by Venus Gate, and that Vega is out of his mind. After further discussions and knowing that the U.S. president has passed away from Medusa, the officials agree to spy and possibly sabotage Venus Labs, naming the mission the most ridiculous name, Sleeping Beauty. Free buses transport people to the Venus Gate Labs castle. These people have volunteered to be put in a hibernation state after scientists concluded that if they freeze the body before the virus kicks in, they will stop the petrifying process. Inside the castle, a receptionist takes the information of a main character, Kasumi, and hands her a bracelet. Then she is told she has to leave her twin sister, Shizuku, who is a cheerful, confident ray of sunshine, so she can attend the briefing that Chairman Vega is doing for the guests. Now, at the end of the briefing, a better asked a very reasonable question to the Sigma Russian man: what if the guy running the place dies while the volunteers are frozen? The Sigma responds with a smug on his face: the castle is controlled and managed by an AI system called Alice. The system also helps in monitoring the physical and emotional state of the residents through the bracelets around their wrists. The camera cuts to Kasumi, who is sitting alone, looking at the bracelet. Underneath it, we can see a scar on her wrist, implying signs of self-harm and depression. Kasumi contemplates going through the hibernation, knowing she will be alone for 100 years without her loving, supportive sister. Now, outside, the girls have themselves a quarrel as Kasumi doesn't want to go through the sleep alone. Her sister, despite visibly looking sad about this separation, tells her that she believes they will meet eventually. The next day arrives, and the volunteers are handing their personal belongings before going through some tests to be put in chambers that look like chambers straight out of the Matrix. Inside the AA clans, Kasumi, before starting the freezing process, after we see some soldiers firing guns and we get a flashback of the wholesome moment between the girls, Kasumi awakens alongside the other people. They are shocked seeing the facility they are in is covered by vines filled with thorns. While looking around, some sort of mutated bat lands on Kasumi's chamber, sending her flying to the ground. But she luckily gets caught by two guys who ask her what's wrong. When she points up, a swarm of the Jurassic bats is flying down. And if we are being honest here, what bothered me the most was not the blood and gore, but the balls hanging on them birds. Anyways, after managing to forcefully open the elevator door, people fell to their death because they were going in without realizing there is no elevator. Out of that death pit, a hell monster rises and tries to catch an old geezer, but the geezer gets saved by Kasumi and a blonde guy who gets caught by the monster's tentacle and crushed to death. After the chaos settles down, a group of survivors made up of a boy, a blonde hottie, a four-eyed middle-aged man, an old geezer, a cop, a criminal, and Kasumi sit around and try to figure things out. However, the group of big alpha males have themselves a quarrel, but the hot blondie keeps it low-key, making her the mom of the group. Soon after, they decide to go up to the upper levels. The group wraps their bare feet with pieces of a t-shirt so the thorns won't be such a huge issue. As the group makes their way up the tower, Kasumi tries to figure out why Marco, aka the jacked-up criminal, is looking familiar. The group soon comes to a dead end flooded with water. There, they get cornered by a monster that detaches the old geezer's head. When the group wants to run from it, they get shot by Tim, aka the little boy, who tells them that the monster is called a Demonsaurus and it tracks down its prey using sound since it has poor vision. Marco asks him if he is sure, then he throws him along with Catherine, aka the blonde hot babe, into the water. After the group members jump to the other side, Catherine notices Kasumi is nowhere to be found. Marco goes to look for her and finds her unconscious under the water. He saves her with the help of Peter, aka the four-eyed middle-aged man. After bringing back Kasumi, the group finds out they are surrounded by a dozen Demonsaurus. The fellas run for the hills as Marco tries to slow the monsters. When they reach his semi-open gate, the fellas find some guns and blast these ugly bastards. After surviving this wave, the fellas regroup in a security room where they treat the minor injuries they had and reload their weapons while trying to figure out their situation from the computers in the room. Now, there's something that weirded me out. Catherine suddenly had a mental breakdown and threatened to slap Tim, but then she wakes up from her state, hugs the little boy, and apologizes to him. As Ron, aka the cop, makes a witty remark about Catherine hiding something from her past, Marco says, "Not Buddy, she's in it. Peter is the imposter." So they drill in with questions until he snaps and takes Kasumi as a hostage and runs to the elevator. In the elevator, Peter makes some interesting remarks, saying, "What the hell are you?" Then the cam cuts to the boys packing up some heat, preparing for the rescue mission. However, unbeknownst to them, a horde of Demonsaurus is surrounding them, which puts the rescue mission on hold as they now need to sneak their way further up the tower. If they had a broken bridge covered with thorns. All goes smooth until Kathy's hand gets stunned by a thorn, alarming the Demonsaurus to their location. Marco acts quickly and shoots a fuel container, exploding the area beneath them. Now, like the total thriller drama in this movie, it cuts to some depressing flashbacks of Kasumi's past. After a spin in the twisted dreamland, Kasumi wakes up inside a lab with samples of a monster, and she hears Peter talking to someone who turns out to be Marco. Apparently, they were working together, and when Marco leaves the room, Peter goes to talk to Kasumi as he knows she was listening. He hands her a chip that contains valuable info about Medusa before dying to a Demonsaurus. When the Demonsaurus turns to Kasumi, Marco enters the room and shoots the thing, and they run for their lives. However, the monster is relentless and keeps chasing them until they reach a hole in the ceiling. But with a monster behind them, they can't climb up. As Marco battles it out with a monster mano a mano, Kasumi suddenly drops the chip, which catches fire from the Molotov cocktails Ron and Kathy throw on the monster. Soon after, the group, now back together, makes their way to a storage room. Marco confronts the group about his true identity. Turns out, the thug is a second lieutenant sent by the US to build a facility up if the suspicions were true suspicions that Venus Gate made Medusa as a bioweapon. However, the confession session was cut short when the floor started shaking and something started smashing on the door. That something was none other than the Russian Sigma male, Dr. Evan Vega, the CEO of VenusGate. Drive Vega starts coming forth with what happened as he says a test subject went out of control and has gone beyond his reach. We learned from Drive Vega that this whole hibernation thing was just a study to learn how to control dreams and forge them into reality. Now, on their way up through a hidden passage, Drive Vega leaves the group. We learn how the whole story began as Vega narrates, 8 years ago, meteorites lit up the sky above a Siberian village. All the residents died from an unknown disease, except one girl. The ministry suspected a contagion, but the issue was a creature which cut through my troops like butter. But we fought it and brought down a hail of bullets. This thing, finally torn to shreds, was the strangest creature we had ever laid eyes on. The laws of biology that govern all known life simply did not apply, and the creature had sprung fully formed from the girl's imagination. Turns out the girl, the little demon monkey, and Medusa are all connected. Vega continues that by bringing the creature to life, the girl survived the effects of Medusa. As Vega continues talking about the events that led to this point, he walks them to a room where Alice is in. Alice apparently passed away, but her consciousness still lives as an AI. Then, Vega tries to end his life by taking a gun that was hidden under the glass coffin, but Kazumi and Marco stop him and demand from Vega to take them to the test subject that went off control, as she suspects by now it's her sister. However, then the foreign vines come bursting out of the ground, and Tim runs away, and the fellas follow him. Their path was cut by the demon who is refusing to die, so Marco, as usual, stayed behind to fight him. And right when it seemed that Marco's time was up, a sword came right through the demon's throat, saving Marco. But in the process, Peter gets petrified, sacrificing his life in the chattiest way possible. Everyone, let's pause for a minute in memory of Gigachad Peter and honor him in the comments. R.I.P. Peter. The fellas, running after Tim, reach yet another dead end and an old abandoned well when Marco joins back the group. We know that Alice hijacked the boy's body and guided them to this point, claiming she's protecting the suitable host, which is her mission. Then she dipped out, and Tim regained control. Back to the wall, the roof, they decide to jump into the rising water as it's their only way to survive. After some hiccups, the group is now on the outside of the castle. They look around and see the castle is covered by thorns all over. Kasumi walks up to the hill where she last stood with her twin sister, and she sees a cam on the ground. She turns it on and watches a recording of her sister having some sort of seizures before the recording cuts. So she comes to the realization that this foreign stuff is the work of her sister's dreams. Hence, she runs back to the castle. Marco tries to stop her by calling her name out and asking her to come back with him, saying that her sister isn't the girl she remembers anymore. But Kasumi refuses and proceeds to enter the castle. While Marco, Tim, and Catherine move to a helicopter and turn it on, as he flies it to the castle that has turned into a dragon. But what was more wacky is Catherine pulling a gun on Marco. She tells him to fly away as she wants to live peacefully ever after with Tim as her new son, after the one she lost before going to the facility. However, Marco tells her that there's no outrunning it, as it will engulf the whole world with its thorns. Meanwhile, Kasumi is still searching for Shizuku by using a computer to locate her position. Back on the outside, Marco is giving a wonderful review about the Sleeping Beauty story, and as he continues his breaking through analysis, Catherine starts coughing and shoots the gun multiple times by mistake, which makes the helicopter spring out of control, hitting a vine that sends Marco flying outside. However, our man manages to hold onto a metallic piece from the castle roof before re-entering the castle from a window. Luckily, he lands in the same room Kasumi is in. She asks him if Tim and Kathy are still okay. He replies, "I don't think so," after seeing them crash by the side of the castle. Now inside again, Marco decides to help Kasumi find her sister as they run towards the location. We see everything turn to stone alongside Catherine, who died while holding little Tim. When Marco and Kasumi reach the final lab, Marco starts having some illusions. He sees his sister, who died to Medusa. Not only that, but his fake sister started kicking his ass. Turns out, it's Alice that is controlling Marco's consciousness and kicking his ass. She explains to him all the leading steps to this situation, and that Medusa is a mental virus that mainly infects those with trauma, as their mind is focused and at the same time fragile for the virus to take control. While she's talking, Marco starts analyzing the situation and comes to the conclusion that she is controlling his consciousness through the chip. Team Venus Gate injected into the volunteers' necks. So, if he shoots himself in the freaking neck, snapping back to reality, Marco proceeds to shut down Alice's system. But while doing it, he takes a pretty heavy blow to the stomach. On the other end, Kasumi is also having illusions of her own. A dream within a dream within a dream, and by God, it was hard knowing what's real as well as what's going on in real time. Hence, I advise you to watch the last 30 minutes as it's suspenseful. Anyways, moving on, Kasumi starts talking to a clone of Shizuku made from thorns. Thorn Shizuku urges Kasumi to leave this place and go live her life peacefully. However, Kasumi declines and demands to talk to the true Shizuku. Thus, the clone ties Kasumi with vines, but Kasumi is not backing down. She tries to brutally escape the vines, hurting herself in the process. A sad Shizuku sees it and gets overwhelmed to the point she starts losing control of the vines outside. And finally, when Alice fully shuts down, Shizuku loses control of her dream, giving Kasumi an opening to crawl to her sister's unconscious body. But the clone emerges and holds Kasumi by the leg, asking her not to look at Shizuku. However, Kasumi manages to pull through, and when she takes a look at Shizuku's wrist, she starts having flashbacks of all that happened. Turns out, when her sister went to the hill, Kasumi was so upset about going through the sleep alone to the point she attempted to kill herself and her sister. But Shizuku, refusing to die, held on to the ledge. And when she looked down, we saw Kasumi dead. Are you following, lads? I repeat, Kasumi has died a while ago. And after witnessing such a painful event, Shizuku's imagination of having a Sleeping Beauty scenario, where she is with her family sleeping in a castle surrounded by thorns, came to reality. And as far as the dead sister part goes, Shizuku dreamed her sister to life. Hence, Miss Kasumi we are seeing now is from Shizuku's imagination. She dreamed her sister back to life. And as all this gets revealed, the castle collapses. So, to save Kasumi, Shizuku pushes her out of the collapsing roofway with a golden vine. Then, She gets caught by Marco, and they jump out of a window into the ocean. But apparently, Big Sister's work is never done, as Shizuku sprouts vines to catch them and slowly put them on the ground. Now, the smoke has settled. Marco asks Kasumi to live a happy life as his dying wish. The man dies sitting up with a smile on his face. Kasumi kisses him on the cheek, then goes and looks for any people around that area. Alongside, little Tim is still alive. Whoa, that was quite a movie. I love the twists and turns it had. Anyways, that's it for